And we're live. So, hi everyone. Thanks again for joining us. I am really excited today for a Facebook Live, YouTube Live Q&A conversation with someone who is well known in Boston and is now giving some advice that I've been looking forward to all week. Shana Bryant is here, and she is the founder and CEO of her own consulting company. She's going to talk a little bit with me today about how we're thinking about this new normal. How can you still be productive, set some routines and goals? So Shana, I want you to tell a little bit about yourself for everyone, but just say like today has been really tough for me between the kids and things not going well. You know, at one point I was trying to make, I think it was breakfast. I was on a conference call. Something came up with my mom who was downstairs. She came up and then like the phone fell. I put the eggs on the table and then totally forgot it was still on the stove. My husband was on a call in a different room, and then the like smoke just started. I was like, okay, I got to slow down.
Slow down, yeah.
And wait until Shana can help set me straight.
Oh.
So tell us, who are you? What's your background?
Yeah, so I am I'm Shana, founder and CEO of Shana Bryant Consulting, and I help to organize chaos through trainings and curated experiences, and typically work with small businesses and nonprofits who really just do execute amazing events, I like to say. And so part of that is really thinking about strategy, planning, and execution, and how to get things done in the most efficient way. And so before COVID-19, I was planning events. I had 6 contracts and was having regular planning committee meetings and setting agendas and managing vendors and so forth, and timelines and deliverables. And so that is literally how my mind operates and how I think about getting things done, really thinking about whatever the goal is and how do we have smaller tasks to really help us get that done. And so once we are now, into a pandemic where I really had to think about how am I going to adapt? How is my company going to adapt? And think about like my livelihood and what that looked like. I began to realize that I have been procrastinating for a long time around virtual events and what that would look like, and creating some digital products and maybe doing coaching and, really thinking about what the value is beyond executing, right? And so now we're here where my big thing is really helping people to think about how they can be productive, whether that looks like, and what that looks like with creating to-do lists, thinking about accountability communities, and thinking about what your routine is going to be moving forward now that we are in this new norm and there really is no immediate in sight. And so we really do have to think about what kind of habits we're forming to make sure we are feeling good about our productivity in the midst of a pandemic. And I want to be clear and remind folks that I understand my productivity and yours is going to be very different in the midst of a pandemic, when we're working from home, when we have our families around us, the distractions, the disruptions, the emotional ups and downs of learning of our family members and friends, first and second degrees of being impacted by COVID, the economic impact that it's having. And so really understanding that, yes, productivity is very different when you are home during a pandemic.
Yeah. And so I think it's so great, but maybe also extra stressful for someone like of an industry like event planning, where your whole job is to set timelines and deadlines and make sure things happen in a certain way. And now, if anything is common across all of our experiences with COVID, it's this uncertainty, right? It's not knowing when things might go back to kind of a new way of operating or closer to being able to move around. And I mean, how are you, just as an event planner, thinking about that as you're envisioning your business over the long term?
So as a business, I've moved to offering some free virtual gratitude and goal setting check-ins twice a week, Mondays at 6 and Thursdays at 11 a.m. And that was really just because I knew that when I was producing at a high level and in general, I do check-ins and kind of, look at my goals, my weekly and daily goals at the beginning of the week on Mondays, and have a planner. I use something called the Panda Planner that helps me plan out my week and think about, I love it because it has prompts where it helps you think about what you're grateful for, how to prioritize and what you're prioritizing, what were your wins the week before, and how to focus on different projects that you're working on this upcoming week. As well as thinking about on Thursdays is kind of the end of the week. And so when do we stop and make sure that we're finishing out our projects and making sure that whatever due dates we have for the end of the week and the upcoming week, we're really just moving things along. And so that's been helpful for me, as well as thinking about when it comes to the event planning, there are 3 components. And so there is the strategy, where I work with clients to really think about what is the bigger picture, the vision for the actual event that day of. And then the actual planning process, which is the longest part, which can be anywhere from 3 to 9 months and up to a year, really planning out every aspect from vendor management to the program to managing the location and so forth, the decor and so forth. And so really positioning myself in a way of, I am a strategist as well as a planner, regardless of whether or not, how we're executing it, whether it is a live event or a virtual event. I still have the skills and experience to be able to help people think about how to get things done.
Great. So I want to get into both of those pieces of the strategies for kind of your day-to-day for individuals. And then I want to talk later on also, just so interesting to think about the differences and how we're translating events from in-person to virtual and what that means. But anyway, more on that later. So, I mean, what do you tell people like whose lives feel like chaos right now? They're trying to balance everything. Some things are on the calendar, but a whole lot of things just feel like they're floating around everywhere in terms of when the kids will need something, or, you get a call that you have to deal with right away. So how should a person kind of begin their day or map out, let's say the week?
So what I highly encourage is for folks to start to really put together a routine. And part of that routine, when I had to really stop to do that, was to think about some of my mandatory minimal tasks, is what I'm calling them. And so for me, that is on a weekly basis. And then I kind of spread it out over whatever my daily routine is going to look like. And so I know I want to make sure that I'm drinking 64 ounces of water a day, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of us, thinking about our health, as well as, exercise. But now I don't have the excuse of like, I don't want to have to go to the bathroom all the time, because it doesn't matter. I'm home, right? The bathroom's right there. And so really making sure that I'm drinking enough water, stretching every day, engaging with at least 2 people. And so having some type of FaceTime and communicating and connecting with somebody. So at least 2 folks a day, as well as making sure that I am having practicing low tech in the morning and in the evening. And so what I did when I created my daily routine was I thought about what I wanted to do the first 90 minutes of the day, which includes drinking 16 ounces of water, doing my stretching. I have my routine right here. As well as doing my gratitude jar. And so where my planner prompts me to think about 3 things that I'm grateful for. And I try to be thankful and practice gratitude in the way of the simple things, like having food in the refrigerator, like having a roof over my head, like still having food, having things, a bank account, and people that check on me, the people that I'm appreciative of. And so really thinking about those very simple things when you're practicing gratitude, rather than these larger, because then it becomes a little bit daunting to think about what are the bigger things, right? But they're definitely everyday things that we can practice and think about that we're grateful for, people that we're grateful for. And then as well as checking my emails in the morning. And so part of checking my emails then means that there is a app called Boomerang, where you can attach that on your Gmail as an extension, and it allows you to pause your emails, which has been phenomenal. And so once I've checked them and I know like who I need to be communicating with, sent out whatever, tasks that need to get done and I need responses to, I then will put on Boomerang, and it pauses all of the incoming emails for however long I want that to be. And then what I do is I think about my end of the day and what I want to be doing at the end of the day. And so I call that my relax time. And so what that is really thinking about, again, how much water I'm drinking, cooking dinner, which now was a daily routine, maybe fun for some of us. And, for me, I feel like it's going to cause me to gain at least 19 pounds. So it's not completely fun all the time. It was fun for like those first couple of weeks. And now it's starting to like weigh on me. I don't want to cook every day, and I definitely don't want to be cooking twice a day or 3 times a day. And so that's not something I was routinely doing. Talk to family. This is where that Zoom, talking to families, connecting with folks, journaling. I drink tea at night. I'm trying to eat an apple or a salad a day. And so making sure that that's incorporated in my dinner somehow, some way. And then as well as, again, low tech at the end of the day, because what I'm realizing even before this, some of us, we had lots of information overload between social media, and now our emails are being bombarded. And so it's really important to make sure that you are putting in kind of these ways to limit your distractions or disruptions during the morning, the evening. And then what I also do is I have what I call work blocks. And so initially they were 3-hour work blocks, and now they are 2-hour work blocks, where I really am just sending out invites to several friends to say, hey, let's get on this work block together. Mm-hmm. And we will check in every 30 minutes. In the beginning, we will talk about what we're working on for this period of time. And so these work blocks have been really helpful because it's creating an accountability community, as well as it's really helping you to share what you're doing and prioritize what you're doing as well. And so work blocks have worked well for me, not only for when I want to get work done, but also if I need to socialize with folks. So the cocktail hours, I have a Wednesday check-in with a couple of friends in the evening to it's an accountability check-in, what you've been up to, what you've been doing, checking on your mental health. How are I have a friend who has Monday meetings with her staff. That can be stressful at times. And so, how's that going, and what tools can we share with each other really just to get through the day? And then also reminding each other that our productivity, whether we were productive today or highly productive today, or got one thing done, or, our to-do list turned into 2 things instead of 7 things, like really being forgiving and compassionate with ourselves to remind us that like, it really is okay. So between the creating a routine, I think it's important. If you have family members, young people, older people, I think, some of our elderly folks, if church or some other things that they would do in their routine has been completely disrupted, we definitely want to find ways to help them think about how can they get connected with those groups. If they were social, how can they continue to be connected? And that way, some of us, we are over Zoomed, but the reality is this is how we're going to be able to communicate with each other. So we do have to figure out how to use it in the best way that makes sense for us. And that is different for everybody.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so helpful because what I'm realizing is that, a lot of feedback. Okay, here we go. What I'm realizing is that now that we are mostly staying at home, in some ways you have had more time because you're not having to commute, to a certain workplace or figure in how long the tea was going to take to get to this or that meeting. But at least for me, what has happened is that all that extra time has now just been more Zooms and more meetings. And it feels like you're in front of a screen now, just like, but not even getting up to walk to the tea station and then like get off the bus and whatever. You're just sitting in this chair and it's boom, boom, boom. So I love the idea of even just blocking off beginning and end of the day and putting some structure there. I mean, low tech is just like, for me, that's like, what
is that?
A little bit about low tech, like, is it just not being on your phone?
So for me, even low tech is I've turned off all of the alerts on my cell phone. And so I have a couple of different emails. And so no alerts for anything except for text and calendar. And so I have some WhatsApp groups as well. And so literally I just can't be bombarded with the alerts and the chimes and the, anything else. I had been using before this do not disturb on my phone. So at night I have do not disturb. I turn that on, and you can make it set the settings so that you have favorites. if you're worried about certain people that need to be able to get in touch with you, right? So my mom or my son or whatever, I have a couple of folks that can get through if they need to, but really being able to sleep and not have any disruptions or distractions are really important. And also just so Boomerang has been huge because it also allows you to schedule your email. So if you are up late, you're a night owl, whatever the case may be, you still can figure out how to maintain your 9 to 5 schedule and, give the illusion that you're working 9 to 5, right? And so at least folks don't expect you to be communicating with them during those off hours. I think for folks that are still managing their 9 to 5, you've got to use your calendar and really block off time. I used to have like nothing time on my calendar where it just blocked off, which means nobody could get to me or could schedule time. And so I think it's really important to be using your calendar appropriately during this time where nobody has to know what you're doing. It just block it off. It can say work time, and that really can mean that I don't think most folks, even when they had a 9 to 5, were working 8 hours a day, right? And so now it should not be assumed that now that we're home with all these other things going on, that we are going to be able to like grind out and do these 8 hours a day. And so really being able to communicate with your colleagues or your superiors that, these are the hours that I can be most effective based off of what's going on around me. And that's it. That's all I got, right? I think the other thing is really thinking about creating a to-do list, which can be at times overwhelming. I know that I've started off with I started off saying a to-do list with 7 to 10 items on it. And now it's kind of like,
do you use an app for that? I
don't. So I need to write things down, and I like the idea of being able to check things off. It feels good. Feel like I'm accomplishing something. And so I do a daily to-do list at night. And that also helps with brain dumping, getting some things out of your head, right? And so the to-do list, the journaling, it really does help with being able to brain dump and just get your head clear before you do go to sleep. So with the to-do list, what I do try to do is it's now more like 3 to 5 items. And I do prioritize the to-do list based off like what needs to get done, as well as I do something called Eat the Frog. And that is where the most important task or the task that you're going to procrastinate with doing, you want to try to get that done first. So get it done. If you're going to do a work block in the morning and do a work block in the afternoon or the evening, get the Eat the Frog done like out of the way, right? Rather than procrastinating to just drag that thing on. Don't drag it on. Just get it done early in the day.
Basically, what I'm hearing you saying, and I'm going to get to some questions because we got some comments coming in on the side here, that, rather than having 8 hours a day and then trying to just kind of struggle through and do what you can in bits and pieces, condense so that you can get the same amount of stuff done, but if you're more productive, you do it in fewer hours. And then you save yourself some time to recharge, to be human. And in fact, that actually helps you be productive in your work hours too. And so I love the idea of kind of syncing work schedules with other people, because then you have that extra, accountability mechanism, but also that what we're all craving right now is just not being with the people that we care about, that we're used to seeing. So this I'm just like light bulbs going up everywhere. So Bernadine, the amazing Bernadine, Truth has a question. Do you find yourself taking longer to complete tasks that might have taken you little time to complete? And then if so, how are we both forgiving ourselves and being good to ourselves to implement balance and self-peace?
Yes. And so I can have a task that is on my to-do list on Monday and it's Thursday, and I'm still like, oh, I need to do that thing. What helps is
still there.
What helps is really knowing. So you need to either create realistic due dates so that when you're getting things done, you're working based off of the due dates. So what I do start to do on Monday is, it may be a list of 10 to 15 things. And I know that at minimum by Friday, this thing has to get done. Right. And so really, really trying to stick to that. And I think it helps if your due dates are aligned with someone else. and someone else needing to get things done, that is another motivating factor, right? That can help you really make sure that you are getting these things done. But I think being realistic about what it is you committed to. And so if this is something that, you committed to within your 9 to 5, I think whether it's breaking down that task so that it's not, the large, I like to say, I'm not writing a 5-page paper in one day, right? Not going to happen, right? And so thinking about the intro, thinking about doing your outline, thinking about, the research that comes into all of that, that is all part of the process to when you actually can complete the full task. And so really being realistic about what is it that you're trying to get done, and making sure that you are breaking those things down into smaller, manageable tasks so you can get done and be checking off some things on your to-do list on a regular basis.
I love that. I think I had been trying to do the opposite, which is almost I know I need to do something, and then rather than think about, when do I have to have it done by, it's kind of like, okay, how do I schedule enough reminders to myself so that I won't forget to do it? But
right.
Again, that it doesn't necessarily help kind of clear out and give yourself the peaceful space to be your most productive anyway. So no,
and I think it helps when you think about there's urgent tasks and then there's important tasks.
Yeah.
And so really recognizing that the urgent tasks have something to do with others, assess, the organization or the client. And then there's the important tasks that, yes, are important and they need to get done this week, or they're important to you. Like, I need to make sure I prep for being on this live, right? I need to make sure that I talk to that person because I just want to check in. And so really managing where those are on your to-do list, and is it something that needs to be done during the day, or are these tasks that can be done during your kind of personal, I need to make sure I'm bringing joy to myself time, and really thinking about how you're managing them.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just, again, if anyone else has questions, feel free to throw them up there. We have a few minutes left. I'm going to just look back through people saying it's really important to keep up that interaction with others, that FaceTime and reaching out in that contact is really important. Love the idea of a work block. Bob is saying the idea of a gratitude jar is awesome. Talk a little bit more about that. So you're putting things into the jar. Are you taking things out at any point?
No. So right now it's the gratitude jar where you're literally just putting things in, right? And so what you can practice with the gratitude jar is thinking about at the end of the year, it's actually nice to be able to pull this stuff out. And I think, next year, the end of this year, even, in 12 months when we're in a different place of COVID-19, being able to look back and just remember that, oh yeah, so-and-so checked on me, or so-and-so was doing okay. Or that's right, I have laundry, right? Like, I have a wash and dryer in the house,
So
and
much laundry.
right? Did that just have that had a reaction? The idea of being able to have a washer and dryer in your house during COVID-19 is huge.
Yeah.
And so really just thinking about those everyday things, being able to, still connect with your constituents is huge. Like, there's some folks that haven't figured out how to do that in an effective way, in a consistent way. And so, I imagine somebody's, gratitude jar is Michelle making sure that she's providing information that, makes sense to us. Right. And so, yeah, it's something to not overthink, but it's definitely something that we should be practicing on a regular basis.
Daily reminder. I love that. Okay. Carlene has a question. She said, okay, how do we still have fun and enjoy time as well without having too much pressure to feel productive all the time?
How do we have fun? So music is how I have fun. Getting on these social calls with friends and just really just talking about whatever, thinking about memories. I posted today about my memories being in Ghana. I am so grateful that I was able to attend the year of return for 2 weeks. And so some of it is just reminiscing. And there are some social things that are going on, social parties, DJ Nice is huge DJ Nice is keeping me up at crazy hours. I was up till 5:45 on Monday listening to him. And so, yeah, really just, we've got to find these creative ways. I know that, some of us may be living alone. And so thinking about if you got to go like pull up to a friend's house and, 6 feet away, be just like yelling across whatever so that we can engage with each other. We just got to be creative about how to stay connected and how to have fun, and do what what you were doing before, but we've got to do it through Zoom, and we've got to do it through social distancing.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, one thing that I've been trying to remember is that because we're here all the time and the kids are around, my husband, my mom, just to allow for little moments of spontaneity. And I had everything scheduled out of this is when we're supposed to have breakfast, and then this is when I'm gonna have a meeting, and he's gonna, and blah 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 blah. And we had one day where one of them found like a ball of string somewhere. I don't even know where they got it, and started winding it around things. And we decided just to take the next 10 minutes and make a big web in the living room. Right, we put it all, like from all the doorknobs to the windows, and it was crazy, and they loved it for the next 30 minutes, and we took it down. But trying to have a little bit of spontaneity when sometimes it does feel like, because we're all either on our own or with the same people in our family,
stuck in the house, like what?
Yeah, stuck
right?
in the house, basically.
We're stuck in the house. So yeah, definitely being creative about. I did a virtual vision board party this past Saturday, and had a few folks join me, and so we have to get creative. I actually am okay with overloading my calendar with events that whether they're helpful for the business or just personal events, or Zooming and doing exercise or whatever the case may be, because I'm finding that there are moments where maybe I did want to be connected and I didn't realize it.
Yeah.
And I'd rather have something on my calendar,
right,
than not. Like I can always delete it if I can triple book myself, because a lot of these things are free now. And so, yeah, I'm okay with triple booking myself and deciding like, all right, I'm going to jump on that because I want to learn something, or I want to just get connected with folks. And I don't think you can overdo that at this point, because you can be non-committal, at least with these free events. You can be non-committal.
Yeah. So, okay. So one comment from Bob, who had mentioned about the gratitude jar before, that he just heard his mom had tested negative on her birthday, and so she is now 87, and that's going to go into his gratitude jar tonight.
Nice.
So we love
Yay,
that.
Mom.
And then one question, this probably be our last viewer question as we wrap up. Okay. So Boston Prep says, thanks so much for sharing these. They're going to share them with the students, families, and teachers. Do you have specific advice for families managing working and learning in the same space at the same time?
So I don't know how, particularly, like if you're a teacher and then you have children, right? So you're homeschooling and you have students that you have to manage and think about like how they are even just living through this pandemic and trying to be students, right? And still do some level of learning and actually retention, which is a whole nother thing. Like we can learn it and we can hear it, but our young people really going to retain it. I think that the routine is more important than ever when you have, when you're wearing both of those hats. And so recognizing, whether it's scheduling, daily times where your young people we're like teaching, and then we're just checking in. Right. And then figuring out ways that you can create opportunities for parents to be able to check in with you as well. And I know that there's lots of unpacking that's happening when we are checking in with people. But I think you have to be very deliberate about when that time is. It's almost like you have to start to give people permission to unload. Right. And finding ways to schedule that, like, I don't know if I want to do a check-in meeting on Monday morning. And that's like the first heavy thing that I'm going to receive. Right. So maybe, moving those meetings to like Tuesday or Wednesday in the middle of the week, and not having to have that level of like unpacking on a Monday. It feels like a lot, right? If you still are kind of trying to have that Monday through Friday. I know that there are people whose routines are still somewhat of Monday to Friday. If you have essential workers, they have somewhat of a Monday, Friday, and weekends actually still mean something. I don't know if weekends mean anything when you're teaching and homeschooling. And so, but really, really being deliberate about scheduling time and trying to stick to that.
Yeah. Oh, that's great advice. And then last question from me, because I know so many of the people who watch and tune in are not just doing their own kind of professional jobs, but are also really active in the community and often organizing lots of events to keep community building and going. So, just tell us a little bit about how you were thinking about virtual events versus in-person events, and for people who are trying to organize their own events or keep some things that had been scheduled before now going again. What are some tips?
So I'm having a hard time because I'm very practical. And so even when I'm talking to clients that we're trying to strategize and plan for events in the fall, I don't think it's happening. And so I'm just going to put that out there. And I don't think that I do galas in the fall. And so a 500 person gala in the fall, probably not going to happen. And so really thinking about how do you move that to a virtual? I'm still learning and kind of trying to take in information about like what could a virtual gala look like. I do think that people want to be connected, and there's something about like being present and being seen and so forth, which is why a lot of these events are necessary. But I do think that regardless of what the organization is or your business is, you've got to find a way to still be sharing some type of value. And that has to be in the virtual sense. And that has to also be thinking about what collaborations you can have, who you can be sharing your information with, and how you can be sharing your information to a larger audience. Everybody's at home. Everybody's on Zoom. Everybody's paying attention to their emails a little bit more. So really making sure that you are sharing information that's relative, that people want to hear, that's of value, based off who your organization is. And so if you have a news list, I've grown my email list by 100 people just by doing the virtual gratitude check-ins, as well as the vision board, right? And so definitely finding a way to use your newsletter list in a way that makes sense. Again, I don't think we can overshare at this point. Like if you have something you want to share it, and some people are going to check in. The beauty of events like this is you can tape it and people can watch it later. And so whether or not folks are watching now, folks are likely going to tune in if you're at least out there sharing information.
Got it. Well, thank you so much, Shana. It's been such a fun conversation. Tell people how they can follow you, get in touch with you. What's the best way if they want to be
so you can follow me social media, Facebook as well as Instagram, Shana Bryant Consulting, and my website is shanabryant.net. And so if you want to get in touch with me and have a consultation, or just really thinking about if maybe a partnership that you want to think about doing, like I said, the more that you can share your information and the more that I can share this information works for me, and I know it works for the greater good. So that's how you can stay connected and reach out.
All right. Thank you so much, Shana. I'm going to do a check-in with you later to see if I'm burning any more food, if I've gotten it straight. Thanks to you.
All right.
Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next time.
Thank you.